Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of Yo Pops, the podcast with me, myself, Shean Williams, and my father.
Indeed.
We're just going to call him Dad.
Indeed,
We're going to go for his titles, otherwise we'll be here all day. Dad, it's wonderful to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you too.
It is, isn't it?
Of course.
Of course. How are you feeling this morning?
Now I'm good. It's sun is shining. That always makes me feel good.
I have to say something.
Sure.
The Bible study you did yesterday was amazing.
Okay.
You need to get sick more often.
I have no intention of getting sick.
Tell the people the truth. You were ill last week and didn't want to rest.
No.
And it was the first time that my dad hasn't done Bible study in, it's got to be years. I mean, without
Decades.
you not being in the country.
Decades.
So firstly, if you can't do a Bible study because you feel that rough, you know you were sick.
I was advised by good people to rest. That's what they told me.
Good people have been advising you to rest for years, for decades. And heaven had to stop you in your tracks and be like,
No, they said that we want you to live long and prosper. So therefore, inject some rest. And that's what I did.
But
so
imagine,
I can live long and prosper. And of course,
prosper
to
and
see,
live.
To see.
What do you want to say?
I'll leave that alone.
Leave what alone? But where are you going with this? Where are you going with this? It's too early for this.
You know, so
It's not even midday yet.
I didn't say anything. I just
Cool.
simply want to live long and prosper so I can see.
But
You
on,
know.
on a serious level, though, the Bible study yesterday was amazing. And if that's what rest does for you, then take it from your son to his father.
Okay.
And from many sons to many fathers, whoever
Right.
may be watching this or interacting with this, we need you all to rest.
Okay. I take it. And especially if you put your pocket where your mouth is. Oh, sorry.
Why are you touching the mic?
No.
We spoke about touching stuff last week, Dad.
That wouldn't it be nice for you to sort of say, you know what? All sons, once per month, we will send our father in a lovely place to rest, seeing that they get so productive after being rested.
I take you for breakfast.
Uh-huh.
I listen to you complain. I help you unknot whatever needs to be unknotted. And now I must pick a destination
Yes.
to send you to
Uh-huh.
so that you can do your job as well as you need to do it
Right.
based off of information that I'm giving you to help you do it better.
So what's wrong with that?
Nothing at all.
Of course.
Nothing at all.
Of course.
So it is written, so shall it be done.
Exactly. I say so too.
Do you know what? Listen, I'm done bantering with you this morning. We were having an amazing conversation about marriage last week. And I don't know if you scared Jamal off because he was with us last week. And this week, he was like,
Jamal, I'm sorry. In the comeback, all forgiven.
Well, do you know what? No. Anna's come down. And guys, you'll hear certain names. Anna's here.
Okay.
So I knew from when he told me on Tuesday, Anna's coming down. I said, okay, you may not be around on Thursday, right? He said, oh, no, I'll be there. I said, Jamal, if Anna's coming,
Yes.
all bets are off.
Yeah, the government is in charge.
So the petticoat government turned up. Yeah, that's you, not me. That's my dad's, by the way. So anybody that wants to send comments or if you want to lambast him, at Bishop L.A. Williams, not at Shean Williams World. No, but on a serious level, Jan's not with us this week. And he was just saying, he was like, really make sure that you do the second part of the marriage. And I was like, don't worry, we will. You gave some really amazing pointers last week, and I just want to go over them. You had 3 really key ones. Trust was one.
Yeah.
The second one was
Trust.
Okay, so what's the first?
So we have trust. Then we also have shared responsibility.
Shared responsibility.
And of course, we also have shared values and goals.
Shared values and goals. Dad, there was a question that I wanted to start today off with. And the reason I wanted to start today off with it is because after our conversation last week, I had a really wonderful time just kind of contemplating a lot of what we were speaking about. Because as much as obviously these conversations are for us, but for everybody else.
Indeed.
I glean so much wisdom in these moments as well. And also I apply what you say to what I see. And I wanted to ask you a question. Let's say a person potentially didn't go into the marriage agreement or situation with the level of information or knowledge that you're presenting now, how would that person begin to mine and to lay the foundations of the things you're talking about? Because they may not be in a situation where they're like, oh, well, I didn't do like that, and I need to get rid of the button. There may be actually a real desire to build again.
Right.
So obviously, I know we've got to still go through a couple of the points that we had, but I wanted you just to kind of bear that in mind, so that if as you're experiencing or explaining, then you can lean into some of those points, or do it now.
Yeah. One of the things that we pointed out in the last time was honesty. Yeah. And so if you're going to restructure, reorganize your life and revisit your past, then the key element is going to be honesty. So each other has to be say, okay, look, I wasn't aware of certain values. I wasn't aware of certain responsibility, and therefore I might have acted in a way by which, could have lent itself to misunderstanding. So therefore that is the first thing. And once people are honest to each other, then you're really beginning to recreate the foundation, as it were, that you might have laid. And once you begin to build on that honesty, recognizing that, okay, there might be shortcomings, but it's not intentional. Wow. There might be activities that may be displeasing, but it's not because the person resents or hates you for why they're doing it. They just were not educated in that particular area of their lives. And it is then you can begin to work together to present, as it were, individual goals. And that is what I think is oftentimes missed in relationship. When two people come together, they've never stopped to ask the other person, what is your goal? Wow. Where are you? Where do you want? Where are you going in this relationship?
Which would lead into shared values.
Precisely the point. And because most people don't know what the other person's goal is, somebody's goal, they're going to see it as the dominant force, and they want everything to rotate around their goal. Rather than, if you know what each other's goals are, then you're going to try your best to facilitate each other's goal, and you're going to come to a good place. And one of the downsides to this, if that is not in place, is that for a lot of people, their goal may be very basic. And what I mean by basic
is it can be achieved very quickly.
That is exactly.
So that's not what the goal that you have is not going to take the time period allotted that most of us expect to be married for.
Exactly.
Most of our goals aren't lifetime goals.
Indeed. And when one get to their goal or achieve their goal, and the other one hasn't achieved its goal, you got a conflict, you got a problem, because then you find that there is that mental war, physical war, and sometimes a spiritual war going on between the two individuals.
Can I stop you for 1 second to pull out what I call a YP snack? Do you know what a YP snack is?
No.
Should I tell you what a YP snack is?
Wonderful.
It's called a Yo Pop snack.
Ah.
So because you chef in a way where you will give a 7-course meal, I like to sometimes break down each course, and I'll be like, tell you what, I'm going to give you a little morsel of this on the basis that you're flowing so well, Dad. And I just wanted to break some information into everybody. Based on what my dad was just saying, it's important that if you are looking at a situation that needs remedy or rectifying, self-awareness will lead to the honesty. The honesty will then allow you to have clarity about what your individual goals are, and both of you pursuing individual goals will benefit your collective environment.
Yes.
And so, I just kind of obviously
no problem. Very good. Very good. Yeah.
But as you were saying, so the problem that most people have is that most of their goals aren't lifetime goals. They're seasonal, which then creates.
Indeed. So what do you think most people, especially in this generation, what do you think most people's goals are?
Oh, Dad, simple. They want a house they can post.
Good.
They want a car they can post.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be able to go on holiday. If they could, probably 3 times a year, but they'll deal with the 2 or the 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then they want to be able to tick off the other things on their list, like, okay, they want to have children. And then from what I've been finding, they then run into the brick wall of, now I've ticked everything off. There's no connectivity between myself and the person that I have agreed to go on this journey with.
Right.
And so it's like what you were saying before, because most of the goals they're object based.
Yeah.
And they're seasonally desired. Then what happens once you've got the house? The kids, you've gone through that first period, and now the kids are kind of obviously, they're in their routine, you're in your family routine, you have the car, you go on holiday. None of those things are going to directly affect not how you see your partner, but
right.
Those things almost become commitments.
Right.
Rather than what I would call, they become commitments rather than shared goals.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because for the man, well, okay, depending on how the structure's set up, I need to make sure that I've got this by the end of the month because they're going to need that. Okay, then I need to make sure that's okay. So it's about making sure that they're not letting down. That's their side of the team. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But then at the same time, what I realize or I see is that whilst they are maintaining commitments, they're losing themselves. And then what obviously appears to trigger a lot of toxicity within the environment is that a man that doesn't have any joy or peace becomes an obstructive figure in his house.
Right. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden now it's going to clash because there's maybe the more socially oriented elements that a woman might lean into. A man that's not feeling himself in that space won't want to be there.
Indeed.
And then obviously, however she's going to maybe.
Well, can you see how the problem can so easily arise? Because in most cases, you don't have the 2 goals aligned together. There is that automatic assumption that one's goal is the other's goal.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? And that is where a lot of disparity sort of happen. So in other words, let's say, for example, we are not wife and husband, but if we were, it's our boyfriend and girlfriend. Let's say
we've got person A and person B. And person A and person B are married.
Yes,
that works. That I can conceive that in my mind.
Okay. No, okay.
I know I should have never left you in the office by yourself this morning. He's got heat stroke, people. He doesn't know where he is right now.
Okay. Now, what I'm saying is that now, before you get into the binding responsibility and commitment of marriage, you 2 people have met and begin the courtship, or as it were,
the courtship.
Yes. Not many people do that these days. But
no, these people are wild out here. There ain't no courting. It's like, me, you.
Yeah, that's it. Yes. So it almost appears that people are afraid to sit down and constructively say, okay, we are going to go east. Is that where you want to go? Because my goal may be taking me west. You get what I mean? And I know that the dynamism of love is there. We are connected. So we do have connectivity. However, our goal, while we're happy to share our goals, there has to be a clear understanding on both sides. What is the goal that's going to be shared? So it's until that is clear in each other's mind, there's always the potential for conflict.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? Because, like you said, let's choose a few common denominator. House.
Yeah.
Now you know that both persons going to share that value, that aspect of it. Cars, they're going to share that. Jobs, they may not share the same job, but the concept of their job, you know, you work, I work, that's understandable. Even though your job may take you northeast, my job may take you northwest. You get what I mean? But we understand that because that's a natural phenomenon. We have the common denominator of children. So we're going to have how much got to be determined goal. Do we want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So once those expected goal, because a lot of people, their goals are based in society, family, etc., what is expected. So once those goals are achieved, then it is what goals you don't share, but it is necessary to who you are.
Wow.
And where you want to go in life.
Yeah.
It is that which now poses as it create the tug of war, you want to call it that. I mean, between the two individuals, because now you have achieved the common goal that you both jointly agree with, and you want to now move on while the other person is thinking, you know what, I've got my goals, achieved my objective. Now I just want you to be my next cushion, or I just want you to be in the house cooking, and while I pursue what you don't want to pursue. You know what I mean? That's where the problem is.
Do you think it'd be fair to say that, and I want to use a legal term, you know, before a trial, both the prosecution and the defense, they will sit down within a deposition, I believe, and they have a thing called discovery. And it's basically where both sides get to look at the opposing evidence that they believe is either going to get the person and sway the... And it often sometimes feels like discovery either doesn't happen or it's not a process of honest interaction.
Yeah.
Because especially for our generation, the majority of what they want in their life has been shaped by social media.
Indeed.
Which, if social media is the manifestation of the fruit, then at the root of it is an algorithm.
Indeed.
An algorithm is telling people what to expect, what to look for,
absolutely,
what the basis is. So we're not going to lose that out of our society, out of what we're doing. So then how would you suggest that people detach from that kind of...
Well, I think it's important for what we call it interaction, you know, have valued interaction, namely by you interacting with each other rather than allowing the social media, as it were, to be the directive in your life, in which a lot of people are doing. So where rather than go to somebody who has both experience and knowledge for information, they go to people of their peers.
Right.
You get what I mean? And whatever extreme ideas they come up with, it becomes the influencing force in their lives, and they bring it home. You know what I mean? So sometimes I look at a few of what some of these parties are saying, and absolute rubbish. In all honesty.
Tell me why.
Yeah, you know, they are sharing what they think is how things should be with partners. You know what I mean? And what they're saying, it's clear they have got no experience, but yet they are going by knowledge that they've either heard from somebody else or they've read somewhere. But in the real sense of the word, they clearly don't have the experience. But for somebody who do not have knowledge themselves, and hear somebody presenting something that sounds good, and especially is veering into their space of thought, you know what I mean? It seemed like the perfect answer. And as you said, the algorithm is, give the numbers. If everybody agrees, this person has 500,000 following him, so what he's saying must be good.
Right.
And so that is where you have it. And I've listened to conversation on the basic principle of love. And very few people even know the basic principles of love. You know what I mean? Because in the first place, connectivity, as we have said before, is one of the first and key element in the development of love. Now, most people don't talk that. They talk about emotionalism. They talk about how you dress, whether you take a person to a restaurant, and whether you pay for the food or you don't pay for the food, whether you pull the chair out and or you don't. You see, these are the look good factors that most people are fed on,
but they're not the anchors.
But it's not the anchor that exactly.
So then let me ask you a question, Dad. How would you define the term connectivity? What would you say that connectivity is?
It's the coming together of two spirits.
Okay.
Is when you, the real you is not your brain or your body. The real you is your spirit.
So then let me interrupt very quickly and say, would you then say that, and it's probably maybe a fundamental, what's killing my generation is that they believe love to be emotional, and it's really a spirit thing.
Absolutely.
And if you have no idea or connection with your spirit,
Indeed.
How can you then understand the greatest power in love?
Exactly.
Am I right in thinking that?
You're absolutely correct. And that is where most people fail, because the spirit transcends the basic knowledge around you. And that is why when you consider that love is a spirit thing, it transcends natural realms. It's a God-given thing. It's something that comes and develops within you without the influence of the things around you that is so changeable. That's why true love is not something that you flip in and flip out of. True love, once connectivity is there, you never lose it, cannot be broken. Because you can't decide, okay, today I've got connectivity and tomorrow I don't. That's not how spiritual, that's how emotion works. That's how the mental projection and the mental structure from one's mind. If it feels too hot today, I'll change my thought on how I am and what I'm experiencing. If it's too cold, I'm gonna change again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But spiriting, whether it's hot, cold, medium, whatever it may be, it remains the same.
So then the absolute that is love can never be housed in the variable house that is mental emotion.
And that is what most people are living on, and why they will get into a relationship today and give it a couple of weeks down the road, they fall out of it, because when the temperature changes,
wow,
when the environment changes, then so does that love. When the visual changes,
wow,
you get what I mean? And that is why so many people are driven by the visual, because they think it is the hook that is going to catch that proverbial fish. You get what I mean? But only to find that, you know what, after it is caught, it's not what I'm expecting. And that is why it is so necessary that if you have that connectivity, then the goal that you both going to share is important, because it is that connectivity that is going to make you tolerate. Because if you love somebody to that level, then whatever they need to do, you're going to be there for the support for them. Even if that's not your goal, you're going to be happy to support them.
Because the absolute of love creates an unconditional basis to which you invest every day.
That's it.
You don't need to see the harvest in order to till the ground.
Indeed. Indeed. And that's where then it leads into trust. Yes, I mean, and and honesty and all of these wonderful qualities that become the decor of one's environment.
Dad, let's say that there is a married couple or a person that is about to go into making that type of decision, but yet they're carrying the baggage of maybe earlier parts of their life,
Mm-hmm.
and models of relationships that maybe weren't are great, or potentially just from their own self, that they're not necessarily in a place where they've dealt with everything they need to internally, but yet are ready to make that that kind of connection and that link. How would you advise them to break the hard ground that potentially could be surrounding their heart and stopping them from being able, like you said, being honest, understanding what their personal investment in the situation needs to be in order to create the collective environment that also helps to push their individual purpose?
Yeah, I think that we talked about the connectivity of love, and that connectivity leads to a number of other important facets where the love issues are. Now, for a lot of people, their activities, behavioral pattern is based a great deal on their environment in which they were brought up.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, some environment is conducive to a amicable and meaningful relationship because they have watched it, taught it, and has been involved with it. It is commonly states that look at the way a son, for example, treats his mother. You know what I mean? It will give you a good indication as to how he's going to treat his wife. You see what I mean? And not to mention how much how he treats his father. Is what I'm saying. I mean that. Yes, I mean, no, that's really important.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yes. You know, have you ever just saying like father should be like son? You know, it doesn't quite work on that.
No, it doesn't. Does it ever?
Yeah, but
well, no. On that basis, then I'm excelling.
Yes. So in that case, then, so all of that.
Do you not want to acknowledge the fact that I'm doing great based off of that statement you just said?
Let me see. I think I'll ask mother. Let's see what she.
Let's phone up. Let's get.
Yeah. So no, I think there's some very, very positive aspect of that, which if you bring to your relationship, I mean, I know you like to wash the dishes, fix the cushion, and but also love to turn up for food as well. Never mind, we won't talk too much about that.
First of all, I turn up for food because I do the dishes and because I fix the cushion. It's my payment.
Of course, of course. So
and where are you when I'm taking Mum to Lidl and Booker and Tesco in the morning and taking her in the car and listening to what she has to say?
Oh, I mean, the odd occasion, I'm relaxing and giving thanks. Giving thanks. Giving thanks.
We love you really, Mum.
Yeah. So yeah. So I think when you have that kind of background, it really prepares you for the future. And it is in that once you find and you establish that connectivity, then you are in a good place to work it together. And hoping that your partner's background is not a problem, is not an issue. And even if it is to have the understanding, and that's where we talk about honesty.
Yes.
So therefore, this person can equally say, look, I didn't have love in my growing up. I didn't have affection in my growing up. I didn't have anyone who really think much about me. I was criticized, put down, all of those negative stuff that I experienced. So you then would be aware that, okay, you've got to now forget about expectation and begin cultivation.
That's great. That's amazing. Say that one more time. Forget. There comes a time when you're dealing with fixing trauma that you have to forsake expectation and cling to cultivation.
Yeah.
Why, Dad?
Yeah, because expectation will always disappoint you.
Yeah.
Cultivation, you'll never be disappointed.
It'll always excite you, won't it?
Absolutely, because you're creating. You're in the mode of creation. So you're going to now create what is both good for you and for the person who you want to spend your life with.
Dad, from my own observation, a lot of what we're speaking about in terms of the verbalization of it either comes when it's irreversibly damaged in terms of the relationship.
Indeed.
A person has found themselves in some form of act or action that has now compromised the trust within the relationship, or it becomes almost, I don't want to say life and death, but a health almost situation. And then you get to this, what I call this crossroads, and then it's almost like you then receive the information halfway in that you should have been aware of. Does that make sense? It's almost like accounting, and then you do it, and then someone then 6 months down the road goes, "Oh, here's the real accounts," and you're like, "This isn't what the business was meant to be." So what I would ask you then, Dad, how would you then advise those at the beginning? How would you suggest that how would they extract these bits of information that you've been alluding to kind of today?
In most cases, looking at the present generation, and let's take them for the moment, to previous generation, and especially around my time, you would never get into a relationship without first having the eyes of experience look over the situation. Those eyes of experience are very discerning, and they could, just by attitude, behavior, can tell whether or not you are going into a situation that is very both vulnerable and destructive. Now, that is not the case. You see, the present generation doesn't feel they need the eyes of experience. They don't feel like I need to go and speak to mom and dad or somebody who has got years of experience under their belt to point out things that you wouldn't be able to see because of where you are in your life. You get what I mean? And that is why you find that relationship in the past lasts a whole lot longer than they are doing in the present. You know what I mean? So you need that guidance. You need to say to somebody, what is your views, or what is your suggestion? Do you observe anything that you feel or discern anything that you feel that I need to be aware of? It's not that you're saying to that person, if they feel they have connectivity, that you shouldn't in a relationship, but you would approach it far more cautiously as well as informative. That is what would make the difference. And you would not hit your head, as it were, on the proverbial brick wall going forward, because you know there's a brick wall there. And you get something and cut a door through it. So that is where a lot of people are making the mistake. Now, you perhaps could tell me something about modern day, let's call it, not that I'm not modern, of course.
No,
but
of course not. You're more modern than all of us.
You know what I'm saying? But you could tell me, for example, in these days, how does people approach their parents when they feel they have a connection with someone, or they don't? They just decide, okay, for now I like that person. I'm just going to go and get into a relationship, married, settle down with them, without seeking any kind of meaningful advice.
Can I be completely honest? The problem that I think my generations and the one to come have is we are overloaded with information. Which then gives us head power. But what we lack is the discipline of consistent execution. And then we're taking the information and the head power, and we're trying to get validation from our parents that at the same time you're trying to help, but we're also aware that there are certain things that we know sometimes don't work in our natural environment. And because sometimes it can be a rarity, I'm very blessed in the fact that, especially where you're concerned, if you've done something that you don't think was kind of completely right, or that you didn't get it, you'll sit and you'll come to me like, I don't understand that. Or, do you know what, I didn't see it like that. I apologize.
Right.
Which then, and even with me, Dad, because sometimes, I'm like when I come into the office and there are mornings when I want to talk and there's mornings when I'm a bit sharp and a bit short and I can see you're a bit like, do you know what, I haven't got time for him today. But for another parent, that's triggering, which then creates a little seed of, and then here comes a wall.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I feel like our generation has got to a place where it's like, you don't want to help us unless it goes wrong and we fall down and we're coming back to you with our scraped knee. Instead of it sometimes being like, and this is where I think you and I have a great relationship, is that it's not that we don't butt heads sometimes, Dad, but the love and respect between us means that even if I wasn't able to hear it in the moment, humility and love brings me back to the table to sit there and go, I've calmed down. Yeah. I've come off my little high horse.
Indeed.
How do I do this?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing that I think that's really allowed, even when we speak to each other, for it to become something that is more than just what I call transferable and it's transformative. About maybe a year or so before the pandemic, our relationship moved from, I will tell you because I'm about to show you, rather than I'm going to tell you because I can't be bothered to show you. And I think we moved from an instruction informative based model to if I show you through example, it's going to be a much greater lesson because A, I show you what you need to aspire to, but B, I also have the humility to understand how hard it is. Right. Because sometimes in that remodeling, you think, oh, this isn't completely easy as I kind of thought it was. And so it's everybody basically being in a position where I come to you and I say, okay, I can admit to you where my fragilities are, my vulnerabilities are, because you're not going to expose them to make me feel like I can't get to where I need to. Right. And then in the same breath, I'm not going to judge you for where you are or what you couldn't do or where you couldn't get to, because the reality is there is wisdom that you've been able to glean from those experiences that's going to allow me to not fall into certain places that you obviously don't want me to fall into.
Yeah, very true. And
did that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does a great deal. And one of the things that love does, it doesn't, in the book of Corinthians, it tells us a bit about it. It said love does not vaunt itself. In other words, it's not in there to show off. Now, as a father, there are a couple of factors that governs how you react to things. Here you got your sons in this case, and they are practicing their position. That is one of the key things. Now, they may not be consciously aware that that's what they're doing, but they are. And I must be, as a father, be consciously aware that if I shut them down, I shut down the conversation, because from experience and knowledge, I know it's not quite where it should be going. Right. You see what I mean? So I would help better to first hear what you're saying. And if you're in a space where you can hear, then I would speak. But if you're not in a space at that moment where I think you can hear, then I would allow you to speak until time comes when you're ready to hear. You're ready to hear. And then I would present it. And then there are times when I will present it, but you may not see it at that moment in time, because you have not experienced certain things. So I have to trust that you put all that information in the deep freeze. That when the time comes for you to throw it out and utilize it, it will be there waiting for you.
We had this very conversation, I think, yesterday or the day before. There were 3 people around me, very closely around me. And Dad, like a sniper on a mountaintop, knocking out people 5 miles away, you were just like, Sean, that one, that one,
Mhm.
that one. And I remember with at least one of them, I was like, no, Dad. And you were like, trust me. I went, and I even got a bit defensive. I was like, no. And you were just like, okay. And I remember it was, I think last week, I came to you and I went, you are absolutely on.
Indeed.
And I think my relationship with you allows me to be less than.
Indeed.
And I think in a society where we're leaning into being the extravagant version of ourselves, many of us, the pockets of counsel, grace, and respite are now found on these devices, Dad.
Yeah, indeed.
And they're not with people of experience and wisdom and capacity, which then means that the information you're getting is as good as what the algorithm can find trawling the internet that was built by the entity that you should be going to get the information firsthand. It's genetically modified advice.
Exactly. And the important thing that I think many people miss is that knowledge can never supersede experience.
That is the perfect.
Yeah. Never, no matter where and how it's coming from, it can never.
Say that one more time for me.
Knowledge can never supersede experience.
Because where it's coming from is not a place of theory. It's from a place of actualization.
That's right.
Dad, firstly, thank you for your time and your wisdom. Thank you for everybody that's tuned in. Please like, comment, share, go to the YouTube. All the links are there. Please, all of my father's platforms, TikTok at Bishop L.A. Williams, Instagram at Bishop L.A. Williams, Facebook, you guessed it, at Bishop L.A. Williams. And have we got a part 3 of this, or we?
I mean, there's as many parts as you want.
I tell you what, we'll do a trilogy. Mm-hmm. We're going to get it to a trilogy. Yes. We're going to have one more week on this. We'll see you guys next week for part 3, and then we'll also be moving on to some other great topics. And we've got some guests and stuff coming in, so hang with us as we grow what we're doing, and we will see you next week. Dad?
Okay. Love you. All right. Love you too.
Bye, everybody.